I was about to go to bed when someone knocked. Shaking. You're Diana, right? I nodded. She started crying. I think your husband is following me. My stomach turned. Because he texted me he was at work, and the horrifying reality was. She looked like she hadn't slept. Hair stuck to her face, hands shaking like she was trying to hold herself together and failing. Please, she said again, softer this time. I don't know where else to go. I should have closed the door. That thought came fast and sharp, like instinct. This wasn't my problem. Whatever this was, whoever she was, it didn't belong inside my house. But something about her didn't feel rehearsed. She wasn't defensive. She wasn't angry. She wasn't trying to explain herself. She was scared. I stepped back. Come in. She hesitated like she expected me to change my mind. Then she walked in slowly, glancing behind her before I shut the door. I locked it without thinking. The house felt too quiet. I handed her a towel from the kitchen and pointed to the couch. She sat down carefully, like she didn't want to touch anything she didn't have permission to. Her eyes kept moving to the door, the windows, the hallway. Like she was waiting for someone to walk in. I stayed standing. What's your name? I asked. Wendy, she said. Her voice cracked halfway through. Wendy Edwards. I didn't know that yet, but somehow the name stuck with me the second she said it. And you said, my husband? I kept my tone flat. Controlled. She nodded. That was the moment everything inside me shifted. Because there's a difference between hearing something strange and knowing it's real. I said, start from the beginning. She pressed the towel against her face for a second, then dropped it into her lap. Her hands were still shaking. I didn't know about you, she said quickly. At first. He told me he was, basically divorced. That you were still living together for financial reasons. I let out a quiet breath through my nose. Of course he did. I didn't even feel surprised. Just confirmed. How long? I asked. About 6 months. 6 months. I did the math without trying. That lined up perfectly with when things started changing. The late nights. The sudden trips to meet clients. The way his phone never left his hand. I asked, and when did you find out the truth? 3 weeks ago, she said. I saw a photo. On social media. Someone tagged you both. I didn't ask which photo. I already knew. Probably that dinner we went to with his coworkers. The one where he insisted we take pictures. I crossed my arms. So why are you here? Her eyes filled up again, but she didn't look away this time. Because I tried to end it. I waited. And he didn't let me. That sentence landed heavier than anything else she'd said. I felt something tighten in my chest, but I didn't react. What do you mean, didn't let you? She reached into her bag with slow, unsteady hands and pulled out her phone. I blocked him everywhere, she said. After I found out about you. I told him it was over. She unlocked the screen and stared at it for a second like she was deciding whether to show me. Then she handed it over. I think you need to see this. I took the phone. The messages at the top were normal. Or at least, normal for an affair. Flirty, casual, the kind of conversations that make your stomach turn but don't shock you anymore. Then the tone changed. You don't get to walk away from me. I've done too much for you. You think you can just disappear? My grip tightened slightly. I kept scrolling. If you ruin my life, I'll ruin yours. And then, I know where you live. Don't make me prove it. I stopped. The room felt smaller. For a long second, I just stared at the screen, reading that line over and over like it might change. It didn't. I've known Kevin for 8 years. Married for 5. He's never raised his voice at me. Never thrown anything. Never made a scene. But suddenly, that didn't feel like a good thing. It felt like control. I handed the phone back slowly. You think he'd actually do something? I asked. Her eyes were wide. I don't know. But he's been outside my apartment. Sitting in his car. Calling me from numbers I don't recognize. I stopped answering and it just got worse. I didn't respond right away. Because part of me wanted to say, that's your problem. You knew he was married. You stayed anyway. But another part of me couldn't ignore what I just saw. I asked, why not go to the police? She shook her head immediately. There's nothing physical. No proof he's done anything yet. And he's really good at sounding normal. That hit harder than it should have. Because she was right. Kevin is the kind of man people trust immediately. Calm. Professional. Measured. He never sounds angry. He never sounds desperate. Even when he lies. I've felt it before, that quiet way he twists things until you're the one questioning yourself. I just never called it what it was. Wendy looked at me carefully. I didn't come here to hurt you, she said. I didn't know what else to do. I stayed quiet. She swallowed, then added, he listens to you. Or at least, I think he does. Maybe if you tell him to stop. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it wasn't. Because she still thought I had some kind of control over him. I didn't. I looked at her, really looked at her this time. Not as the woman my husband slept with. Not as the reason my life was falling apart. but as someone who was sitting in my house, shaking, asking me for help. And the worst part? I believed her. That scared me more than anything else. Because if she was telling the truth, then the man I was married to wasn't just a liar. He was something else entirely. I said, "You want me to talk to him?" It wasn't a question. She nodded quickly. "Or just be there when I tell him it's over." I don't feel safe doing it alone. I leaned back slightly, processing that. My husband. Her. And me, standing in the middle of it. It didn't feel real. But it was. And for the first time, I realized something that made my stomach drop. I wasn't scared of losing him anymore. I was scared of what he actually was. I said, "I'll think about it." Her shoulders dropped just a little, like that was enough for now. We sat there in silence for a moment. Rain tapping softly against the windows. The clock ticking louder than it ever had before. And somewhere in the back of my mind, a thought kept repeating. If she's telling the truth, then I've been living with someone I don't actually know. And I had no idea what he was capable of. Wendy didn't stay long after that. She kept checking the windows like she expected headlights to flash across them any second. I walked her to the door, watched her step back into the rain, and waited until she got into her car before I locked it again. I stood there for a while after, hand still on the lock, listening. Nothing. Just rain. But the house didn't feel the same anymore. It felt like something had already entered it, something I couldn't see, something I couldn't undo. I checked my phone. No new messages from Kevin. Still working late. I looked at the time. 12:47 a.m. For the first time in months, I didn't believe him. I walked back into the living room and sat where Wendy had been sitting. The towel she used was still there, damp, folded into itself like it didn't belong. 6 months. I kept thinking about that. 6 months of lies, and I didn't see it. Or maybe I did, and I just chose not to look too closely. There were signs. There are always signs. I just explained them away. Kevin traveling more. Kevin coming home late but not tired. Kevin suddenly caring more about how he looked before leaving the house. The phone always face down. Always locked. I used to tell myself, he's just busy. That's what happens. People get comfortable, then distant. It's normal. But this didn't feel normal anymore. This felt calculated. I didn't sleep. I stayed on the couch most of the night, staring at nothing, replaying every small moment from the past 6 months and trying to line them up with what I knew now. By morning, I had a headache and a decision I wasn't ready to make. Kevin came home at 7:12 a.m. I heard the front door open. His keys set down in the same place he always puts them. Shoes off. Jacket hung. Routine. Controlled. Like nothing had changed. I stayed in the living room. When he walked in and saw me sitting there, he paused for just a second. Not long enough for most people to notice. But I did. "Hey," he said, like this was a normal morning. "You're up early." I didn't answer. I just watched him. He walked closer, slower now, reading the room the way he always does. Not reacting, just observing. "What's wrong?" he asked. Calm. Steady. No panic. I stood up and held out my hand. "Let me see your phone." He didn't move right away. Just a slight tilt of his head. Like he was deciding how to respond. Then he smiled a little. Not amused. Controlled. Why? That one word told me everything. Because if there was nothing to hide, he wouldn't ask that. "I just want to see it," I said. Still calm. Matching his tone. He slipped his phone out of his pocket, but didn't hand it over. Just held it. "Did something happen?" he asked. I stepped closer. "Let me see it." A longer pause this time. Then he unlocked it and handed it to me. Too easily. That almost threw me off more than if he'd refused. I took it and immediately noticed something. No notifications. Nothing recent. Clean. Too clean. I opened his messages. Normal threads. Work contacts. A few group chats. Nothing out of place. No Wendy. No unknown numbers. No threats. Nothing. I felt something cold settle in my chest. I looked up at him. Where are the deleted messages? He didn't even blink. What deleted messages? There it was. That shift. Not denial. Not panic. Just smooth. I handed the phone back slowly. "A woman came here last night," I said. That made him pause. Not long. But enough. "What woman?" "She said her name is Wendy." I watched him carefully. This time, the reaction was smaller. Just a tightening around his eyes. Then gone. "I don't know anyone named Wendy," he said. If I hadn't seen those messages, I might have believed him. That's how convincing he sounded. I crossed my arms. "She says you've been seeing her for 6 months. He let out a quiet breath. Almost like he was disappointed. "Diana," he said, soft, steady. "You're going to believe a random stranger who shows up at our door in the middle of the night?" There it was. Not denial of cheating. Not outrage. Just redirecting the focus. Making me question her instead. "She had messages," I said. "From me?" he asked. I hesitated for half a second. And he saw it. That's when I realized something. He already knew. He knew exactly what she had. And he knew I didn't have it. I felt my stomach drop. She showed them to me, I said, anyway. He nodded slowly, like he was piecing something together. Okay, he said. And you didn't think maybe they were fake? I didn't answer. Because the truth is, for a split second, I did think that. And he knew it. He stepped closer, lowering his voice just slightly. You don't know who she is, he said. You don't know what she wants. People do strange things, Diana. My name and his voice always used to calm me down. Now it felt like pressure. She said you've been outside her apartment, I said. Another pause. Then a small shake of his head. This is exactly what I mean, he said. She's building a story. He walked past me into the kitchen, like this conversation wasn't urgent. Like it was already handled. I have clients who deal with situations like this all the time, he continued. People get attached. They create narratives. It escalates. I turned to face him. So you're saying she's lying? I'm saying you should be careful, he replied, pouring himself coffee like it was any other morning. Letting someone like that into the house? That's not safe. The way he said it. Not defensive. Not angry. Concerned. For me. And that's what made it dangerous. Because part of me wanted to believe him. It would be easier. So much easier. No affair. No threats. No second life. Just a stranger making things up. But I couldn't unsee those messages. I couldn't unhear the way her voice shook when she said she was scared. I said she knew things. He glanced at me. Like what? I opened my mouth. Then stopped. Because suddenly I wasn't sure what counted as proof anymore. He watched me struggle with it. Then nodded slightly, like he understood. Exactly, he said quietly. That's when I felt it. Not confusion. Not doubt. Something else. Clarity. Because this wasn't about whether he was telling the truth. It was about how good he was at making me question what I already knew. I stepped back. And for the first time, I didn't argue. I didn't push. I just said, okay. He studied my face for a second, like he was trying to read what that meant. Then he relaxed. Just slightly. I'm going to get some sleep, he said. Like everything was normal. Like nothing had shifted. He walked past me, down the hallway, into our bedroom. And I stood there, listening to the door close. That's when I understood something I should have realized a long time ago. He wasn't going to admit anything. Not because he was innocent. But because he didn't have to. He just had to make me doubt myself. And for years. It worked. I went to work like nothing had happened. That was the strangest part. I got dressed, tied my hair back, grabbed my bag, and walked out of the same house that didn't feel like mine anymore. Kevin was asleep when I left. Or at least, he looked like he was. I didn't check. I didn't want to. The drive into Richmond felt longer than usual. Every red light felt like it lasted too long. Every car that slowed near me made me glance twice. I kept thinking about what Wendy said. He's been outside my apartment. Not just messages. Not just words. Presence. I parked outside the office and sat in the car for a minute, staring at the steering wheel, trying to settle my thoughts into something clear. But nothing felt clear anymore. At work, everything was the same. Numbers. Emails. Reports. Deadlines. Simple things. Logical things. The kind of things that either add up or don't. I used to like that about my job. There was always an answer. Now I couldn't stop thinking about how my entire life didn't add up anymore. Diana. I looked up. Laura was standing near my desk, holding her coffee, watching me with that look she always gets when she knows something's off. You okay? She asked. Yeah, I said automatically. She didn't move. I sighed. No. She pulled the chair across from me and sat down without asking. What happened? I hesitated. Not because I didn't trust her, but because saying it out loud would make it real in a way I couldn't take back. My husband, I said finally. I think he's involved with someone. Laura didn't react dramatically. That's why I told her. She just nodded once. You think or you know? I know. Okay, she said. What kind of involved? I let out a breath. 6 months. Maybe more. She leaned back slightly, processing. Do you want to leave him? She asked. Straight to the point. I shook my head. That's not even the part I'm stuck on. Her eyebrows pulled together. Then what is? I lowered my voice. She came to my house last night. That got her attention. The woman. I nodded. And? She said she's scared of him. Laura didn't say anything for a few seconds. Then, scared how? He's been following her. Messaging her. Showing up outside her place. Laura's expression changed. Not shock. Concern. Do you believe her? I stared at my desk. I didn't at first, I said. But she showed me messages. And him. He says she's lying. Laura let out a slow breath. Of course he does. I looked at her. You think she's telling the truth? I think, she said carefully, that people don't usually show up at someone's house at midnight, soaked and shaking, for no reason. That was exactly what I'd been thinking. I just needed to hear someone else say it. She leaned forward slightly. Has he ever done anything like that before? I shook my head. Not like this. But even as I said it, something in my chest tightened. Because that wasn't entirely true. Not like this. But there were moments. Small ones. Things I ignored. Like the time I told him I was thinking about switching jobs, and he calmly explained why that would be a mistake. Not aggressively. Not controlling. Just convincingly. And I stayed. Or the way he always knew how to shift an argument just enough that I ended up apologizing. Even when I wasn't wrong. I never called it control. I called it communication. Laura was watching me. What are you thinking? She asked. That I might not have seen things clearly for a long time. She nodded slowly. That happens, she said. Especially when someone doesn't come at you aggressively. It's harder to spot. I looked down at my hands. I showed him the messages, I said. And? He didn't deny them, I admitted. He just reframed everything. Laura gave a small, humorless smile. That's worse. I know. We sat in silence for a moment. Then she asked, what are you going to do? That question again. I didn't have a good answer. I told her I'd think about helping her end it, I said. Laura blinked. You're going to help the woman he cheated on you with? I let out a quiet breath. I know how that sounds. It sounds complicated, she said. That's one way to put it. She leaned back in her chair, thinking. Do you feel like she's lying? She asked. No. Do you feel like he is? I didn't hesitate. Yes. Laura nodded. Then your problem isn't her, she said. It's him. I already knew that. But hearing it out loud made it harder to ignore. What if I'm wrong? I asked. You're not, she said simply. I looked at her. You don't even know the full story. I don't need to, she replied. You're not the type to jump to conclusions like this. That should have made me feel better. Instead, it made everything heavier. Because if I wasn't wrong, then I was living with someone I didn't understand at all. Laura stood up slowly. Just be careful, she said. Whatever this is, it's not normal. I nodded. I know. She hesitated, then added, and don't deal with it alone. I watched her walk away, then turned back to my computer. The numbers on the screen didn't make sense anymore. Nothing did. Later that afternoon, I checked my phone. One message. Unknown number. My chest tightened before I even opened it. I'm sorry to bother you again. He was outside earlier. I don't think he saw me leave. I don't know what to do. Wendy. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back. Where are you right now? A few seconds later. At a cafe near the courthouse. I didn't go home. That made sense. Public place. People around. Safer. At least for now. I looked at the time. Still early enough. I grabbed my bag. Laura noticed immediately. Everything okay? I need to step out, I said. She studied my face, then nodded. Text me when you're done. I will. The drive downtown felt different this time. More focused. Less confusion. Because now, I wasn't just reacting. I was choosing. When I got to the cafe, I spotted her right away. Wendy was sitting near the window, her hands wrapped around a cup she wasn't drinking. Her eyes moved constantly, scanning the street. Looking for him. I walked in slowly and sat across from her. She looked up, relief flooding her face instantly. You came. Yeah, I said. Her shoulders dropped slightly, like she'd been holding herself together all day. I didn't know who else to call, she admitted. I nodded. I figured. She hesitated, then asked, did you talk to him? Yes. And? I held her gaze. He says you're lying. Her expression didn't change. Not surprised. Just tired. Of course he does, she said quietly. I leaned forward slightly. I need you to tell me everything, I said. No skipping. No softening. She nodded. Okay. And as she started talking, I realized something I hadn't fully accepted yet. This wasn't just about an affair anymore. This was about control. And I was only just starting to see how deep it went. Wendy didn't rush her words. That was the first thing I noticed. She didn't talk like someone trying to convince me. She talked like someone trying to make sense of something that already happened. He approached me first, she said, staring down at her cup. At the coffee shop near the courthouse. I was working on something and he just started talking to me. That tracked. Kevin is good at that. Casual conversations that don't feel like they're going anywhere until suddenly they are. He said he worked nearby, she continued. Came in a few times after that. It felt normal. Easy. I didn't interrupt. Because I could picture it too clearly. He told me he was separated, she said. That things were complicated, but basically over. He said you were staying in the same house because of finances. Same story. Same tone. Carefully believable. How long before it turned into something more? I asked. A few weeks, she said. Maybe a month. I nodded slowly. That's when the late night started, I said, more to myself than to her. She looked up. Yeah. We sat with that for a second. Then she added, at first, he was attentive. Always checking in. Making sure I got home safe. He remembered everything I said. I almost laughed. Of course he did. Kevin doesn't forget details. He collects them. What changed? I asked. Her grip tightened around the cup. When I found out about you. She paused, then forced herself to continue. I saw a photo online. You and him. Someone tagged you both at a dinner. I didn't say anything right away. I just watched. Watched what? I asked. His behavior, she said. To see if he'd tell me the truth. And he didn't. She shook her head. He kept acting like everything was normal. Like I didn't know. I felt something cold settle in my chest again. Then I asked him directly, she said. I told him I saw the photo. I asked if he was still married. And? Her voice dropped. He smiled. That didn't surprise me. That's what he does, I said quietly. She nodded. He told me I was misunderstanding. That you and him were basically done. That social media doesn't mean anything. I closed my eyes for a second. That was exactly how he would say it. Calm. Reasonable. Just enough doubt to make you question yourself. I almost believed him, she admitted. Almost? She shook her head. I asked him to prove it. To show me something real. Documents. Anything. And he couldn't. He didn't, she corrected. He just redirected. Changed the subject. Made it about trust. Of course he did. When did you decide to end it? I asked. 3 weeks ago, she said. I told him I couldn't keep doing it. That I knew he was lying. And that's when everything changed. She nodded slowly. At first, he didn't react. He just listened. Like he always does. I felt my jaw tighten. But then, she continued, he started asking questions. About where I was. Who I was with. What I was planning to do. I leaned forward slightly. Planning to do? About telling you, she said. That made my chest tighten. I hadn't even decided yet, she added quickly. But he brought it up like it was already happening. He assumed you would, I said. Yeah. We sat in silence for a second. Then she said, I told him I just wanted to walk away. That I didn't want to be involved anymore. And? Her voice shook slightly now. He said, you don't get to decide that. The exact same line from the messages. I felt a chill run through me. What did you do? I asked. I blocked him, she said. Everywhere. And that's when he started showing up. She nodded. Outside my apartment. At first, I thought it was coincidence. But then it kept happening. Same car. Same time. Did he approach you? I asked. Not at first, she said. He just sat there. That felt worse. Not loud. Not aggressive. Controlled. Calculated. Then he started calling from different numbers, she continued. Leaving voicemails. Not threatening exactly. Just reminding me that he knew where I was. I felt my hands curl slightly against the table. That's when I got scared, she said. Not before. Not when I found out about you. But then. I nodded slowly. Because that's not about the relationship anymore, I said. That's about control. She looked at me surprised. Yeah, she whispered. Exactly. For a second, we just looked at each other. And I realized something. We were both describing the same man. Just in different ways. Why come to me? I asked finally. She hesitated. Because you're the only person he actually listens to, she said. I almost corrected her. But I stopped. Because I understood what she meant. Not listens. Adjusts for. He cares how I see him. That's different. He won't risk you seeing him like that, she added quietly. That part stuck with me. Because she was right. Kevin controls everything, but he controls his image most of all. And if I saw something he couldn't explain, that would matter. What do you want me to do? I asked. Her answer came fast. I want to end it. For real. With you there. I studied her face. You think that'll stop him? I think, she said carefully, that if he knows you know everything, he'll back off. Maybe. Or maybe he'd just adapt. Find another way to control the situation. That's what he does. I leaned back in my chair. When? I asked. She looked surprised. You'll do it. I didn't say that, I replied. I'm asking when. She swallowed. He asked to meet tomorrow, she said. He said we need to clear things up. That sounded like him. Neutral words. Loaded meaning. Where? I asked. Parking garage near his office. Of course. Private enough. Controlled. I don't like that, I said. I don't either, she admitted. We sat in silence again. Then I said, we're not doing it there. She looked relieved immediately. Okay. We meet somewhere public, I continued. Daytime. People around. She nodded quickly. Yes. That's better. I'll be there, I said. The words came out before I could overthink them. Her shoulders dropped, tension leaving her body in a way I hadn't seen yet. Thank you, she said. I didn't respond. Because I wasn't doing this for her. Not really. I was doing this because I needed to see it. Needed to see him. Not the version I've lived with. Not the version he shows the world. The real one. We finished our conversation quietly after that. No dramatic moment. No big decision. Just details. Time. Place. What to say, what not to say. When I left the cafe, the air felt different. Clearer. Not lighter. Just sharper. Because now, there was a plan. And plans come with consequences. As I got into my car, my phone buzzed. Kevin. Where are you? I stared at the message. Simple. Casual. But now I could see it for what it was. Not curiosity. Tracking. I typed back. Out. 3 dots appeared almost instantly. Then disappeared. No reply. I set my phone down slowly. And for the first time since all of this started, I felt something settle into place. Not fear. Not confusion. Something colder. Awareness. Because tomorrow, I wasn't just going to confront my husband. I was going to see exactly how far he was willing to go to keep control. And I wasn't sure what I would do once I saw it. I didn't sleep much the night before. Kevin came home late again, quieter than usual. He moved through the house like he didn't want to wake me, but I was already awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to every step he took. He didn't check on me. That stood out. Usually, he would at least look in. Say something neutral. Keep the image intact. This time, he went straight to bed. Like he already knew something had shifted. I stayed where I was for a while, then got up and checked my phone. One message from Wendy. Are we still doing this? I stared at it. Then typed back. Yes. Tomorrow. 11 a.m. public place. I'll text you the location. She responded almost immediately. Okay, thank you. I didn't reply after that. I just sat there in the quiet, thinking about what this was about to become. Because this wasn't just about ending an affair anymore. It was about control. And Kevin doesn't give that up easily. The next morning felt strange. Too normal. Kevin was already dressed when I walked into the kitchen. Coffee poured. Phone in hand. Like any other day. He looked up at me and smiled slightly. Morning. I nodded. Morning. We stood there for a second. Then he said, You heading to work early today? I have something to do first, I said. He studied me for a moment. Not suspicious. Just calculating. All right, he said. Let me know if you need anything. That sentence used to sound supportive. Now it sounded like surveillance. I won't, I said. Something in his expression flickered. Gone in a second. But I saw it. I grabbed my keys and left before the conversation could stretch into something else. Outside, the air was cold, sharp enough to wake me up completely. I didn't go straight to work. I drove downtown instead and parked near a cafe across from a busy office block. Lots of people. Foot traffic. Windows everywhere. No quiet corners. No control. I texted Wendy the location. Here. 11 a.m. stay inside. I'll meet you there. She replied with a simple, okay. At 10:52, she was already there. I saw her through the window, sitting near the front, her back straight, hands wrapped around a cup she probably hadn't touched. Same as yesterday. Scanning the street. I walked in and sat across from her. You okay? I asked. She nodded quickly. Yeah, but her eyes kept moving. He hasn't messaged since last night, she added. That doesn't mean anything, I said. She swallowed. I know. We didn't say much after that. We didn't need to. At 11:07, he walked in. Kevin. Calm. Composed. Like he had all the time in the world. He saw us immediately. Of course he did. His eyes landed on Wendy first. Then shifted to me. And for just a fraction of a second, he stopped. Not physically. But something in him paused. Then he walked over like nothing was wrong. Like this was a normal meeting. Diana, he said first. Then Wendy. His tone was exactly the same for both of us. Balanced. Controlled. He pulled out the chair and sat down. I didn't expect this, he said calmly. I didn't respond. Wendy didn't either. So he filled the silence. I think there's been some confusion, he continued. And I'd like to clear that up. There it was. Not denial. Not apology. Control. I leaned back slightly. Go ahead, I said. He nodded once. Wendy, he said, turning to her, I don't know what you think is happening, but showing up at our house. I didn't think, she cut in, voice shaking. I was scared. Kevin didn't react to the interruption. Just watched her. Measured. You're not in danger, he said calmly. That almost made me laugh. Not because it was funny. Because it was so precise. So deliberate. You've been outside my apartment, she said. You've been calling me from different numbers. No, he replied, just as calmly. I haven't. The confidence in his voice. If I didn't know better, I would have believed him. Wendy looked at me, panic creeping in. Like she was starting to doubt herself. And that's when I stepped in. She showed me the messages, I said. Kevin turned to me slowly. And you believe they're real? Yes. He held my gaze. Long enough to make it uncomfortable. Then he nodded slightly. Okay, he said. Then let's talk about that. He leaned forward, folding his hands together. What exactly did you see? I didn't answer right away. Because I realized something in that moment. He wasn't asking because he didn't know. He was asking to control the narrative. To define what counted. to reshape it. So I didn't give him details. I just said enough. Another pause. Then he sat back. Diana, he said, softer now, you're smarter than this. There it was. Not anger. Not denial. Disappointment. Like I was failing him. I felt something shift in my chest. Not hurt. Not confusion. Clarity. You've been lying to both of us, I said. He didn't respond. Just watched me. So I kept going. You told her we were separated. You told me you were working late. You've been seeing her for 6 months. Wendy's breathing got shallow beside me. Kevin's expression didn't change. But he didn't interrupt. That mattered. You don't get to stand here and act like this is confusion, I said. It's not. The table went quiet. People moved around us. Conversations. Coffee machines. Normal life. And us, sitting in the middle of it like everything had already cracked open. Finally, Kevin spoke. You're making assumptions, he said. I almost smiled. Because that was it. That was his move. Always. Not denying. Just shifting. You didn't answer anything, I said. I don't have to answer something that isn't true, he replied. Wendy looked like she was about to say something. Then stopped. Like she didn't trust her own voice anymore. And I saw it happening. Right in front of me. The same thing he's done to me for years. Quietly. Carefully. Making you question what you know. I turned to her. Say it, I told her. She looked at me, then at him. Her hands were shaking again. You told me she was out of your life, she said. You told me it didn't matter. Kevin didn't even blink. I never said that, he replied. Her face fell. And I felt something inside me snap into place. Because I knew that line. I've heard it before. Different situations. Same tone. I never said that. Not arguing the meaning. Just the wording. Just enough to make you doubt yourself. I leaned forward. You're doing it again, I said quietly. He looked at me. For the last time, he said, calm as ever, there's nothing going on here. And that's when I understood something completely. He wasn't going to admit it. Not here. Not ever. Because admitting it means losing control. And Kevin doesn't lose control. I sat back. And for the first time, I stopped trying to get the truth out of him. Because I already had it. And I realized something else. This meeting wasn't about ending the affair. It was about seeing him clearly. And now I did. Wendy looked at me, eyes wide, waiting. I met her gaze. Then I turned back to Kevin. And said, we're done here. Not loud. Not emotional. Just final. And for the first time since I'd known him. He didn't have a response ready. Kevin didn't follow me out. That's what I noticed first. I stood up, grabbed my bag, and walked toward the door without looking back. I expected to hear his chair move, his voice call after me, something, anything. But nothing came. Just the sound of the cafe continuing like we hadn't just blown something apart in the middle of it. When I stepped outside, the air felt different. Not lighter. Just real. Wendy came out a few seconds after me. I could hear her footsteps behind me, quick, uneven. I stopped near the edge of the sidewalk and turned around. She looked like she didn't know what to say. Is he going to keep? She started, then stopped. I shook my head slightly. I don't know. That was the truth. Because Kevin wasn't predictable in the way people expect. He didn't react loudly. He didn't chase. He didn't explode. He adjusted. That's what made him dangerous. But he knows I know now, I added. That changes things. She nodded slowly, trying to hold on to that. Thank you, she said again, quieter this time. For showing up. I didn't answer right away. Because I wasn't sure why I did. It wasn't for her. Not really. It was for me. I meant what I said before, I told her. After this, I'm not involved. She nodded quickly. I understand. And I think she did. We stood there for a second longer, then she turned and walked away, blending into the crowd like she just wanted to disappear into something normal again. I watched until she was gone. Then I got in my car and just sat there. Hands on the wheel. Engine off. Thinking. Not about the affair. Not even about Wendy. About Kevin. About the way he sat there, completely calm, like nothing could touch him. Like truth didn't matter as long as he could reshape it. And for years. He did. I went home that afternoon. The house was quiet again. Too quiet. Kevin's car was already there. Of course it was. I walked in, set my keys down, and stood in the entryway for a moment. Listening. He was in the living room. I could hear the faint sound of the TV, something low, background noise. Like everything was normal. I walked in slowly. He was sitting on the couch, one arm resting on the back, remote in hand. When he saw me, he muted the TV. No tension. No confrontation. Just waiting. How did it go? He asked. Like it was a meeting. A task. Something small. I didn't answer right away. I walked further into the room, set my bag down, and faced him. You didn't deny it, I said. He tilted his head slightly. There was nothing to deny. I almost smiled. Because that answer didn't work anymore. Not on me. She's scared of you, I said. That's her choice, he replied calmly. There it was again. No responsibility. Just distance. I looked at him for a long second. Really looked. And for the first time in years, I didn't see my husband. I saw someone I had built a life around without ever fully understanding. I'm not doing this with you anymore, I said. He didn't react. What does that mean? He asked. I'm done trying to figure out what's real every time you speak, I said. I'm done questioning what I saw, what I heard, what I know. He watched me carefully. Still calm. You're overreacting, he said. That word. I almost expected it. But it didn't land the way it used to. Maybe, I said. But I'm still done. A pause. Longer this time. He studied me, like he was trying to decide which version of me he was dealing with. Then he said, "You're not leaving." Not a question. A statement. I felt something settle in my chest. Not anger. Not fear. Just certainty. You don't get to decide that, I said. That was the first time I'd ever used his tone. His words. On him. And it worked. Just slightly. I saw it. That small shift in his expression. Gone in a second. But real. I think you should take some time, he said, standing up slowly. Clear your head. There it was. Reframing. Resetting. I shook my head. I already did, I said. Silence filled the room. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Real. I picked up my bag. I'm staying with Laura for a few days, I added. I'll come back for the rest of my things later. He didn't stop me. Didn't argue. Didn't raise his voice. He just stood there, watching. Like he always does. Calculating. Adjusting. But this time, it didn't matter. I walked past him, down the hallway, out the front door. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was leaving something behind. I felt like I was stepping out of something. Something I hadn't even realized I was trapped in. That was 3 weeks ago. I'm still at Laura's place. Work feels normal again. Or as normal as it can be. Kevin hasn't called. Hasn't texted. Not once. And somehow, that feels worse than if he had. Because silence from someone like him doesn't mean nothing. It means he's thinking. Planning. Or maybe, he's just done. I don't know. Wendy sent one message a few days after everything. He hasn't been around. I think it worked. I didn't reply. Not because I didn't care. But because I meant what I said. I'm not part of that anymore. I've started looking for a new place. Something small. Mine. Something that doesn't feel like it belongs to someone else's version of reality. And sometimes, late at night, I think about it. About how close I was to believing him. About how easy it was to question myself instead of him. And that's the part that stays with me. Not the cheating. Not even the lies. The control. The quiet, careful way it happens. So now I'm here. Out of it. But still thinking about one thing I can't quite settle. If I hadn't opened that door that night, if she hadn't shown up, would I still be living like that, not even realizing it? And honestly, was I strong for walking away when I finally saw the truth? Or just lucky that someone else showed it to me first?